Hey, MSU Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm here with Sam Tucker, who took first place at our 11th MSU Yu-Gi-Oh! Club Locals. What were you playing today?
I was playing Kashtira.
All right, cool. You want to show us your deck?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there's 40 cards. Some of this stuff's going to be really standard, obviously. We'll get into the interesting stuff afterwards. So, obvious stuff, triple Fenrir, triple Unicorn. And then for the other names, I'm playing one Scareclaw, one Ogre, one Rise Heart. So, I found that, minimizing these names is probably pretty strong, pretty good. I didn't ever want the second one, and I don't really want to draw this card either. It's only good if you have birth, usually if you draw it. And this card's effect is relevant sometimes in the grind game because whenever it's special summoned, whether it's from your hand or grave, you can send a card, and sometimes sending a Theosis or a Big Bang is relevant. But I find that you can, as long as this card's in rotation, like in your grave or banished, you're really never going to want to add the second one. So that's 9 Kashtira names.
Most of us don't run this Tier Elements Kashtira, right?
No, it's so Scareclaw does the same thing. It's the same summoning condition, but the effect of this card is actually relevant. One fold is it's because if you have this plus Fenrir up, it outs most Towers monsters because it negates the effects of the monster without targeting, and the Fenrir can banish face down. And then this card also allows you to OTK in 4 cards, basically, because when you summon off Theosis, it has to come in defense. And this card can attack in defense, so you don't have to go into your extra deck to OTK under 5 summons.
Cool.
Yep. So the rest of the monsters, obviously 3 Ash, every deck, good for
Yeah.
good for everything. But I actually side out of Ash a lot. But it's just good in the main because it's solid against everything. So that's all for the monsters. And then obviously one terraforming triple planet. Planet is, you just need, this deck needs consistency, so you kind of have to play all 4 of these. And I'm also playing something else that's kind of spicy as well. We'll get to because this deck can brick surprisingly well. And then for the other spells, 3 of this. You got to play 3. Again, this is an extender if you draw it, and so you kind of just need it. But the best card in the deck is obviously, if anyone who's played it or played against it, Kashtira Birth is the best card.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest contender for this deck to get hit to 1, in my opinion, because when you hand trap this deck and they already have Birth, it's literally the worst feeling ever, honestly. But yeah, in the grind game, this card is key, And then also in some matchups, the effect to banish face down is pretty good. So it gets branded, even if they outbeat Rise Heart, you can still banish the materials face down on resolution because if you control Kashtira monster. So all around, really solid spell lineup Kashtira's got. And so we're into tech cards, 3 Book of Moon. This card is just generically good. I don't like Book of Eclipse because it loses to Ash, and I also want my main deck cards to be able to be set on my turn. And if I have a Rise Heart up, which is what I do most times, I make a Rise Heart and maybe one other monster and pass. And then I have Eclipse. It's I have to have Lance. I have to have Lance to not book my own Rise Heart under Eclipse. It's kind of shitty. So yeah, we're just going with Book of Moon because it's good going first and second. Doesn't lose to Ash.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit more flexible than Eclipse right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's less powerful but more flexible. That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
And then Power Prosperity. Unfortunately, you do have to play this card Kashtira. This deck is way too inconsistent without this card. This just does everything. It's grab your starters, grab your extenders. It you can banish extract monsters that you can attach to the Rise Heart. This is basically an honorary Kashtira card. Okay. And then Forbidden Lance.
How have you been liking that in the main?
I mean, it's just honestly so good. I mean, when you're especially if you're trying to play into back row decks like Labyrinth, I mean, being able to have the Lance to stop a compulse, a punishment, anything. I mean, also when you make the Rise Heart, it makes your Rise Heart pass lines a lot more resilient. You feel more comfortable just making a Rise Heart and passing because this trades with the book or an Imperm or anything like that. So in general, yeah, this card is just very, very strong. It helps you set up Zeus lines too, going second.
Yeah.
When you're playing into back row and you want to make an Xyz monster and they compulse or something, boom, you have Forbidden Lance for it. So this card is just very flexible and I really like it.
Against decks Lab, you were talking about, it even more than 1-for-1 trades because it just turns off all their back row.
It turns off floodgates, right?
Yeah.
So all around.
Yeah.
And again, this is a card I don't see a ton of people main decking, but I think this card is actually pretty good to main.
Okay.
Think about it in the mirror. You can hit Planet, you can hit Birth. This card, and my philosophy on building this deck right now is because you can play against so many decks this format, is you want cards that are always live against something. And there's not a single deck you're going to play against probably that this card's not going to do anything against. And it's also just as good to set going first. If you set an Arise Heart plus a Book of Moon and a Cyclone, that's pretty strong. So yeah, I like the Cyclones, and
Yeah.
that way you don't have to like side deck your spell and trap removal either.
It's interesting seeing spell and trap removal going back to the main deck after so many years.
Because I think with this deck, 1-for-1 trading is very strong because your engine cards like do a lot on their own. So if you can just like cosmic a back row, summon a unicorn, and then they impermanent and you lance it, and then like you're so good from that point. Like you just want to be able to trade with their cards. And cards that are always doing something is what you want. So here's kind of the spice. I'm playing Set Rotation and Scare Caulfield spell. So this has multiple uses. So first off, if you're going first and your hand doesn't play through Imperm, you can activate Set Rotation and give them Scare Caulfield spell. They can't evenly you, and they can't Imperm like a unicorn or anything like that. This card also is another copy of like the Kashtira planet. So one more consistency card there. And then if you already have the planet, like the Kashtira planet, this adds you Scareclaw Kashtira, which is going to be super important for this build because a lot of people at this locals and pretty much everywhere now are on Kaijus now. And if you have access to Scareclaw Kashtira, you're way more likely to be able to play through a Kaiju against decks that lose hard to the macro effect. Which I'll get into right here because now we're on the trap cards. So first off, just impermanence. And then yeah, the 39th and 40th cards. So Big Bang. Obviously you need a Big Bang for the combos. This also recursion because you can attach it to the Arise Heart and do things with that as well. But the preparations allows you in conjunction with the Scareclaw Kashtira. So if you have this set up, if you make a Rise Heart and you have this card on the field and you have this in hand, and like I said, these cards make it more likely you can do that. So if they Kaiju the Arise Heart, you go Scareclaw Kashtira, banish the Arise Heart, and then on a new chain you go Preparation to summon the Arise Heart back. So they're still under the macro. Like you lost all the materials, but like against some decks, it doesn't matter how many materials the Arise Heart has. You just want the macro. So,
Yeah.
So I found that to be pretty good all around. So that's the 40 card main deck.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll get into the extra real quick. Triple Arise Heart, you have to play 3 of this in the mirror. If I ever saw anyone play 2 of this in the mirror, it would be the first thing I rip. Because once you're out of a Rise Heart, you can't do anything pretty much. 2 Shangri-Ira. This card is like, it's actually good even when it's not zone locking. A lot of times, like one game against Labyrinth, I literally just made this card and like set preparations and pass. Because this card can't be destroyed, it summons every turn, it just generates a lot of advantage, even if you don't care about the zone locking. But obviously, zone locking is very good. And speaking of zone locking, there's Diablosis. We all know what that does, and it enables the 3 and 5 zone lock combos. Double Big Eye. This card could possibly be cut to 1. I thought this would be a lot better in the mirror, but it doesn't come up as much because a lot of people are playing like Imperms, and because like in theory stealing their Rise Heart and then slapping a Zeus on top of this is really strong, but a lot of people are playing Imperms and Ghost Mourner, and so if you make this and you commit into an Imperm, it feels really bad. And then Double Zeus, you actually do have to play 2 Zeus because they grip it.
Yeah.
And this is the best card in the extra. I genuinely believe that out of the non-Kashtira cards, the Dark Arm card is ridiculous. It enables so many lines. It's not once per turn to pop. You can pop twice. If you have Theosis in the graveyard and you like made Rise Heart, this card has to banish on resolution. So if you set your Theosis up, you can banish Theosis, add back a Birth. So a lot of times, like you're playing through their board, or you want to make Zeus or something, and you want to have plays after you commit, you can like send Birth off Rise Heart and then banish Theosis off the Dark Arm to add the Birth back, make your Zeus, and then you can, main phase 2, you can activate Birth and start playing. So yeah, this card is really strong, yeah.
Imagine if it was
so
a quick effect too.
Yeah, that would actually be broken.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so funny how the effect to banish ends up making the card really good. I don't think this card would be that strong if it didn't have to banish a card.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then after that, there's the one link I played Donner. This isn't as necessary because I'm not playing Nibiru. Spoiler for the side deck, but sometimes your opponent gives you something, or you need to take something, and you need to link it off, like with talent. If you take it with talents or something, and you need to get this off your board. So because you have to have a clear board to summon the Kashtira monsters. So, and then there's the 3 prosperity targets. It's Omega, Goliath, Garura. Garura is probably the best all-around one because if you attach this first, you feel less bad about getting your Rise Heart Kaiju or getting rid of because it's replacing itself with the card. In some matchups, going for Goliath is pretty strong because this card says the monster attached to it. The monster it's attached to can't be destroyed by card effects. So especially against like runic decks, like they can't like flash and fire it. It can be good. And the Omega, like the graveyard effect is relevant sometimes. but mostly this is for a side deck card, which I'll explain. So that was my 15 card extra. Now we'll get into the side, and that's the card I'm talking about right here. So this is so this card is probably the one card in the side I don't think I would ever take out right now because first off, it's just generically good. When you play against Sprite, you need a card that like negates and destroys to get stuff off the board. Because if they normal Beaver, none of your normal hand traps like really do that much against Sprite. You need to remove the body and to get the effect. So this is good against Sprite, but it's also generically good against a lot of decks. When the Kashtira player is going first, if you just Gamma the Unicorn or something, like that gets a body off the board, it's less likely they'll get to the Arise Heart. But if you open up any normal spell and this is in your hand, what I like to do is I like to go to Prosperity and not banish the Omega like I normally would. Then I'll reveal 6, I'll add a card. Then the Rise Heart has a mandatory effect to activate because a card was banished. Then I'll chain the Gamma to that. And that gets rid of the Arise Heart. You summon both. The Arise Heart's gone, and you take both of those and you make Omega. And then Omega rips another card, and you ripped a card, you out of the Arise Heart, and your board is clear. So, yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, this I've actually done this a couple times in the Kashtira mirror, and it's very strong. And this doesn't lose to a lot of this stuff. Like, if they already attach the Goliath, it's not as good, obviously. But this doesn't lose to, like, Lance, which most Kashtira players are playing. So like the traditional outs like Books and Imperms like are susceptible to being like hurt by Lance. Speaking of like other good generic cards, generic spell cards, I'm playing Double Thrust. And then my targets are Tactics. This is mostly for the mirror, but you can probably think of some scenarios where this is good against other decks. This is for back row, but this is also good in the mirror. Like if you want to out the birth and the preparations, but you don't want to go for a Zeus line. This is probably the most suspect one. I felt like this might be okay if they gave you something you didn't want. I thought about this being Dark Ruler, but I feel like a lot of the boards that you'd want to add Dark Ruler against, they have multiple spell and trap negates, so you're not going to, like, so when they activate Monster Strike and you activate Thrust to try to add Dark Ruler, they're just going to have a negate for the Thrust. So this might be better into different types of decks, but you may have to hand trap those really big decks that you can't, like Thrust is not going to do anything against those. And then finally rounding up the rest of the hand traps. 3D Shifter, I mean, I know some people weren't playing this for a while, but I mean, unfortunately, this card kind of sucks. But like nobody likes this card. But I think people were like, well, it doesn't do anything to Kashtira, and sometimes Brandon can play through it. But well, you can play like 15 other decks this format, and a lot of them don't beat Shifter. Like they have all the outs to the Rise Heart, but Shifter just does that without committing a body to the board, so they can't. I mean, the card sucks. But
people went from complaining about Shifter last format to this. They're like, oh, it sucks.
Yeah, like they're saying it's terrible. Like, yeah, you don't main it, but it's a great side card. And then last side card, this is experimental, but again, this is like a card that always does something, which is, and when you side it in, so that's different from cards like Nibiru and Droll. So if I'm playing against like Brandon and Cash, which is what I'm afraid of the most, if I have Nib or Droll, those are only good if they do certain things. Like if the guy makes a Rise Hard and pass, then the Nibiru shits my hand, doesn't do anything. A lot of like Brandon players are playing under 5 summons now. Same thing with Droll. If the Cash player starts with Terraforming, then you win the game when you activate Droll. But if they special Unicorn and they add Theosis, that basically does nothing half the time. And Contact C, on the other hand, like yes, they'll summon some cards, but if you wait until they activate Theosis or summon Rise Heart, they're locked into Xyz, and it's very hard to deal with this on the first turn you do it. So you're guaranteed to keep them off the Rise Heart most of the time. And then in Branded, this card's probably better than it is against Cash, because if they just go Branded Fusion and they make Bubellion or Albion, if you Contact C there, they probably can't summon anything other than maybe Guardian Chimera, which obviously does nothing, or if they play Sprend. But if they want to summon Sprend instead of Mirror Jade, I'm totally cool with that. So yeah, that's the side.
Okay, cool. So, do you have any shout-outs you wanted to give?
No, not today. Just shout out to the club and all the people who run it, because it's a very fun event to do on a Monday. I appreciate it.
All right, well, thanks for your deck profile.